got the latest bike from Aniioki here. It's the A8 Pro Max. This is a absolutely giant 52 volt, 60 amp hour battery. Now on previous Aniioki bikes, that meant something like 100 miles of range just on throttle. This one could be a little bit different because instead of a single rear hub motor, we're running dual hub motors, pushing a lot more power through it. So the range might not be quite as good if you use all the power, but this thing should be fast. Let's see if it has the power they claim. Now I can only test the rear wheel, one wheel at a time. So I'm gonna disconnect the front and hope that this all works without throwing any error codes. I think it will, so let's try it. Beep. There we go. Okay, there's a few different modes: rear wheel drive, front wheel drive, both wheel drive, and I believe the last setting is like max power. I got the dyno software running. 3, 2, 1. Over 1,000 watts. Definitely no speed limit on this. Still accelerating. Speedometer's a little fast. Don't mind me if I'm talking to myself a little bit. I'm just filming some stuff. But feel free to interrupt me anytime. Yeah.
How long does it usually last the battery, bro?
I mean, with both batteries on that bike you were looking at, like 50 to 80 miles is a pretty good estimate. Yeah, they'll go ways. All right, I'm gonna stop the dyno run here and see what I got. There we go, 1,347 watts, 37.85 pound-feet of torque. Those are some pretty good numbers because we gotta double it. That means I'm getting, I gotta do the math, but 2,700 watts altogether, and 37 times 2, whatever that comes out to. Now the battery isn't the only thing giant about this bike. There's one other thing I have to point out, and to be honest, this is the only reason I agreed to review this bike, is I wanted to see this in person for myself. This is the largest brake rotor I've ever seen on a bicycle. I don't even know what size this is. I have some rotors that are 246 millimeters, and I thought those were giant. They are way smaller than this. They are thinner than this. This is just absolutely a massive hunk of steel. It is so incredibly solid. It is huge. I firmly believe that this is overkill and completely unnecessary, and almost kind of like a competition of who can put the biggest brake rotors on a bike, just to say they have the biggest ones, and Aniioki wins. No doubt about that. The rear brake is not small by any means. It is fairly large. It looks a little bigger than a 203 maybe. Either way, front and rear, it's running these really cool looking machined 4-piston brake calipers. I mean, big, beefy calipers, giant rotor, which is the kind of stopping power you need on a bike that's heavy like this. I haven't weighed this thing, but it is heavy, trust me. Big battery, 2 big motors. There is no thought that I can see about weight savings on this thing. It's all about going really far with a lot of power. So we've got well over 70 pound-feet of torque, which is enough to climb any hill I think I could try and come across. We've got enough horsepower to go quite fast on the top end. I'll have to verify what the top speed is once I find a flat stretch of road. So let's go ride this thing. I'll give you some more thoughts on it. One more thing I'm gonna point out before I get going is these tires These are all-scape tires. They are kind of a hybrid between a moped motorcycle tire and a bike tire. They are extremely thick, way heavier than a typical bicycle tire. I've installed these on several bikes, and they're actually a great option. I bought them in both 20x4 and 26x4 tire sizes, so it doesn't matter what kind of fat bike it is. Those can work on there. The Aniioki already comes with them, so if you've got some sort of heavy duty or fast e-bike, definitely take a look at those. I'll put a link in the description. You can find these things on Amazon. You do have kind of the standard key just for removing the battery, and then for turning the bike on and off. It also has a key fob security system. Put that in my pocket. The bike did come with mirrors. There's not a ton of room on the handlebars to actually mount them, but it came with them, so I put them on there. I don't even think I can shift through all the gears with the way I mounted this one on the right. There's probably a better place to put it, but let's face it, I'm not gonna need the lower gears because this thing has so much power anyway. Based on the dyno, the speed reads about 10% too fast. Front rotor's a little noisy. Probably could use a little adjustment or tuning. Stopping just fine. All right, so here's a pretty steep hill. I'm full throttle. I'm just gonna read you the speed on the speedometer. We're at 27, 28. 28 up a really steep hill. Not bad. Cruise control kicked on already. I'm gonna tighten this up. Cruise control is on. The front fork is air adjustable. I don't know why my camera keeps going that way. I just realized I only had it in 3. It goes faster in 5. So I said 28 going up that steep hill, but I think I had it in power 3, pedal assist 3, but that wasn't actually full power, so it might have done 30 something up that hill. Dang it. So it's now 2 days and 2 camera lenses later. So the other thing they say is that the top speed is 45 miles an hour, I think it was. So let's see if that is true. Eco mode, or 1, does with both motors on. That only gets us up to 10 miles an hour. Definitely speed limited. 2. 2 is basically a class 2 bike. We're doing 21 miles an hour. I'm giving you the actual speed that's reading on the screen. Bear in mind, it's like 10% too fast. All right, 3, which they call normal mode, 33 miles an hour. So far, 1 is 10, 2 is 20, 3 is 30. Is 4 gonna give us 40? 38, but it's about 10% too fast, so it's really like 35, roughly. So this is 5. So that got us up to a displayed 42 miles an hour, which is a realistic 38-ish. Now, let's press the middle button. I'm gonna change it so the tires on the screen are showing in green, which I think is now more power. I think. Didn't actually go any faster on the top speed. So it gets close to 40. Like I said, that's not slow, but it's not 45. I think the good things are probably why most of you came to this video. Oh. It's got a giant battery, and it's got 2 motors with a lot of power. maybe not quite as much as they advertise, but it's still got a lot of power. The tires are excellent. I think that's a really good choice to go with a big, meaty, beefy, thick tire on anything that weighs as much as this does, goes as fast as this does, and has a battery this big. Because my expectation is, if you're gonna get something like this, you could potentially go 30, 40 miles one way, and you could be a long ways from home, and you don't wanna have the bike run out of battery or have a flat tire that far away. So having big tires on it and a big battery, make sure that doesn't happen. Now, I don't know what that clunking noise is. I kind of wanted to go to the park over here, do the little off-road section and see how does this handle off-road, even though that seems like a terrible idea. And already hitting just bumps in the paved trail, I don't think it's gonna do very well off-road. I mean, it is full suspension. It's got some giant shocks. The front is air adjustable. There is kind of a big flaw on it, which is you have to loosen the handlebars and turn them to the side to access the air adjustable cap right here. But there is something in the bike that's rattling. I don't know if it's, no, it's not the battery, that's tight. It might be the motor controllers inside the frame. Speed bump. So I think I've decided to change my mind a little bit. Oh, and I'm not even gonna go off-road. I can already tell it's not gonna do great for that. Speed bump. It's just something clunky. That rotor is still just one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. Now, one of the other things I should point out is this being an all-wheel drive bike, this front fork is super thick. It is absolutely massive. These are some of the thickest forks I've ever seen. They are definitely designed for a front hub motor. So you're not gonna have to worry about breaking the forks. This is what I'm talking about with the cap for the air adjustment. I mean, you can technically pull the cap off, but you can't actually adjust the air. You can't get anything in there unless you move the handlebars. That's just kind of a strange design choice there. It's got a decent headlight. It's got a tail light, as well as turn signals. No signals up in the front. The horn is one of those buzzer styles. The saddle is really big and comfy. I like that on this model, as opposed to some of the other giant battery bikes we see, you still have an adjustable seat height. So you can actually get this thing up to where you can still pedal it. You're probably not going to. Even in like assist level 3, this thing's going fast enough that the pedals are useless at that point. But with the weight that it is, the speed that it goes, the heavy duty tires, the seating position, it's kind of like just riding an electric sit-down scooter. This is a full twist throttle, like a motorcycle. Now the display is quite nice. You got a lot of information on there. It's actually showing like power usage for the motors individually, one on each side, which is kind of cool. You can just run the rear motor, the front motor, both. We've got our trip meter, odometer. You can see I put 36 miles on the bike so far. Looks like we can adjust some of these settings here. Clock, units, power on password. There's actually a lot of little settings on this screen. Speed limit, 81 kilometers an hour. So this thing is cranked up, and that's just as fast as it wants to go. In conclusion, I like the brakes. They are great. The suspension is okay, but the bike itself is just not that great off-road. This thing is fast. This thing is powerful. If that's what you want, that's what you're getting. The rest of the fit and finish and components it could use a little bit of work. So these are $29.99, right at $3,000. Are you getting your money's worth? I think so. Aniioki kind of came out as like the first bike that I remember with a battery this big.
they do have some competition now. There's other bikes, other companies that are trying to make things with giant batteries, dual motors like this. So they're not alone in the marketplace, but I think the value is there for the price you're paying. So if you want one of these, I'll leave a link in the description to where you can get one. We are not at this time a dealer for Aniioki. They send me this bike so I could make a video for them, and here it is. I did not break a camera today, so this was a success.